Okay, guys. Well, it seems that we're live. I think so. Yeah. So, yeah, as always, let's start off by doing a quick audio and video check. And yeah, if you guys can hear me okay and see me okay, then I know that we're rolling, right? So, that, and also, I always love to hear where you guys are from. I have no idea how many people will show up for this video today. It's a very specific topic. So yeah, we'll see, right? Yeah, we already got 12 people on board, 13. Awesome, awesome. So yeah, where are you guys from? Let me know. Where are you watching this video from? And of course, I'm always very interested to hear why you have a special interest for this video. Okay. All right, Brazil, awesome. Oh man, Brazil is really awesome. Okay, so I assume the audio and the video is okay. Sweden, excellent. Yeah, I love Sweden. Okay, guys, we'll give it maybe one more minute or so, and then we'll dive in, right? And Bangladesh, India. Okay. So yeah, very, very different topic than what I usually talk about, but nevertheless, I think a very important one. And I'll get into why I'm doing this video in a bit. Macedonia, wow. Okay, guys. Well, yeah, it's time to get started. So here we go. So you guys from all over the place. Cool, cool. Like you have seen in the description, we're going to be talking about what your chances are in the 3D industry when you have a disability. Okay. Now, I made a whole lot of. Hey, Francesco, how you doing, buddy? I made a whole lot of notes here because it's such an important topic, and several people actually asked me to do this video. Okay, so what we're talking about, the topic of today, is what are your chances in the 3D industry with a disability? Now, keep in mind that we're going to get real today. So I'm not going to be talking about unicorns and rainbows and, blowing smoke up your butt. We're going to talk about the real deal, the real world, how you can expect the industry to treat you and so forth and so on, right? So this might get a little bit rough at times, but hey, you want it real. That's what that is, okay? I'm going to tell you guys just a couple of little household tips or things. This video will stay up afterwards, so if you are not able to watch it right now, it will stay up on the channel. It will not be shut down or whatnot. The video is not monetized in any way, so don't worry about that. No ads and stuff. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. So one question before we get started. I think it would be a good idea for this video to have subtitles. Yeah. And I really don't know how to do that. But if anybody does and anybody has time and inspiration to do so, that'd be great for those who are hearing impaired. Okay. And if you have a disability yourself and you have a question and you can't type as fast, it's totally fine for you to send me an email and I'll be happy to respond back to you. Okay. So I'll just give you my email address quickly. So you don't have to worry about that. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be talking about what your chances are in the 3D industry, but I certainly also want to have a time reserved for you guys to ask questions, right? About maybe your specific situation, about questions about the industry and that kind of thing. Alrighty, so first a disclaimer. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physiotherapist, I'm not a shrink, anything like that, right? So I'm not going to be talking about what you should or should not do, right? I don't have any knowledge of your specific situation. So don't go out and do stupid shit and then come back and sue me, right? That's just what I'm saying here. This is my personal opinion and it's based on my personal experience. And I just hope it's helpful for you, okay? Alrighty, so why this video? Well, first of all, I hang out a lot with veterans, so former soldiers, ex-firefighters, law enforcement officers, and a lot of them have seen, combat or situations where they got injured. So I know a lot of people that, have various disabilities, and I talk to them a lot about it, and that's how I came into that world, right? I also have a loved one with a disability for a very long time now, and I have a disability myself. So that's where my interest is. Okay. And in case you want to know what the disability is, I have never talked about it online, and I'm not going to start to talk about it either, for the simple reason that I don't want that disability to define me, right? I've been able to function in the industry for a very long time with nobody knowing anything about that disability. So there you go. It's proof that it can be done. Yeah. All right. So you probably know the term PC, or political correctness, right? I don't know if there's any people here from the US right now, especially people in the US tend to be super, super political correct. I'm not that guy, right? If you get quickly offended, then don't watch this live stream. When somebody can't see anything, for me, that person is blind and not visually impaired, right? And just so you know that. I don't mean any disrespect by using those terms. I just like to call it as it is. Yeah? Okay. All right, moving on. So what does disability mean anyway? Well, first of all, let me tell you, I hate that word. I hate the word disability because it means that you are not able. And for me, a disability doesn't mean that at all, right? It means a physical or mental impairment that limits your ability to do certain activities. That's the official definition, okay? Right, so if it limits your abilities, compared to what, right? I know people that have one arm and they play better piano than I will ever do with two arms, right? And two hands. So if it impairs them compared to what they would have been able to if they didn't have a disability. For me, this is kind of like a judgment, as a value statement or a judgment as to how the world sees you with your ability or disability, right? And I don't think that's a good thing. So that's just my personal opinion. Okay. Now, okay, let's talk about the 3D industry. That's what you guys came for, right? So the topic is, what are your chances in the 3D industry? Now, what is that, a 3D industry? For most of you, the 3D industry is the entertainment industry. So it's the game industry or it is the movie industry. So either special effects in real life movies, or animated movies, or let's say game development, game creation, mobile platforms, console platforms, PC games, and all that. Yeah. That is what people usually think about when they talk about the 3D industry. But there is so much more than just the entertainment industry. Think about architectural visualization. Think about interiors. Think about the automotive industry, medical simulations, scientific simulations. There's so much more out there than just that 3D entertainment business. Okay. Right. So before we move forward, and we're going to talk about a number of hurdles that you need to get past, right? Before we do that, are there any questions so far, right? Any questions about the video, why I'm doing this video, what I want to talk about, and so forth? Okay, I'll give you a second. I'll take a quick sip of my drink here, and you guys can ask me any questions you have, right? Go ahead. I'll give it a few more seconds. So any questions at all, guys? It's actually too bad that I can't talk to you directly. That'd be kind of cool. Okay, so it doesn't seem to be the case. So we're going to jump to hurdle number 1. And what time is it? Okay, it's 9 minutes past 11 in the morning right here. Yeah. So Anmi, can you ask one? Yeah, sure. Go ahead. I'll give you a second. Okay, so Wilfred, I'm going to keep all questions on topic, all right? So I'll talk about that in a second, but yeah, okay. All right, so hurdle number one. If you want to be of any value in the 3D industry to anyone, right? To a studio, to a client as a freelance artist, to anyone in general. And this actually doesn't even matter whether you have a disability or not. But hurdle number one is you have to value yourself. If you feel that you're not able because of a disability or for whatever reason, right? If you feel that you're not able and that feeling defines you, then everybody else will define you the same way. So if you feel that you don't have any value to bring to the table, why would anyone see you in any other way? Now, the big thing with a disability is if you were born with a disability, it's typically different because over the last 10 or 20 or 30 years, however old you are, for you, it's your kind of default. You never had a different situation than the disability that you were born with. And you probably came to a point where you started to accept it or at least deal with it, right? It's different though when somebody becomes disabled, let's say because of an accident, right? Or somebody suddenly goes deaf. It can be very frustrating. It can be very, very hard to accept. And that can get in the way of your career big time, right? So if you are in that situation where you feel, I can't move forward, I can't do any of that, then that is absolutely the first thing you have to do. You have to accept the situation to a level that you can actually move forward, right? So that's number one. So let's see. As far as for you getting into the 3D industry, it's actually completely crucial because without that acceptance, absolutely nobody will hire you. Okay. Let's see. So hurdle number two. Let's say you came to terms with that disability that you have, and you're at a point where you want to move forward. Give me 1 second, guys. There's a guy at my front door. Sorry about that. Unplanned. I'll be back in really 1 minute. Yeah. And I think it's just a package or something. Take that minute to put in some questions. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Well, that's the joy of doing a live stream, right? That's a first. Anyway. Okay, guys, so we're talking about hurdles. So we talked about hurdle number one. You need to value yourself, right? And let's see, some questions here. Any reservations? Okay, I'll talk about that in a second, right? Just let me catch my breath. I ran out and ran back, yeah? Okay, so hurdle number one, get to terms with your disability, right? I know that's super hard. It's easy to say that, but you have to get past that. Otherwise, you're not going to have no chance. Trust me. Right. So hurdle number two, why do you want to be a 3D artist? Now, that is super important because this is about the value. Okay. So if you want to become a 3D artist, then you have a reason for that. What is that reason? because you want to express yourself in a creative way, because you want to be part of a team making a new movie or a new game. What is the main reason? And when I say reason, I mean, what do you want to get out of it? Do you want to become a 3D artist because you want to make a lot of money? Do you want to become a 3D artist because you want to be famous? What is that reason? And you need to understand that for yourself perfectly, right? Why I'm saying that is this: you will have to probably do more than most to make it in the industry, okay? So you need to be super focused on the resources that you do have and the skills that you do have to make that happen. So understanding your situation is absolutely critical, okay? So why do you want to be a 3D artist? Now, that may be a simple question, you would think, right? People may say, oh, because it's cool. Well, that's not a reason, right? So why do you want to be a 3D artist? For example, well, because I want to express myself creatively. Why do you want to express yourself creatively? Because that allows me to tell my story. Why do you want to tell a story? I mean, you see, it's not that easy, right? Make sure you have a perfect understanding of why. Because this may determine what type of job you need to look for, what type of skill you need to get, whether it's important that you find a paid job or not. All of this relates, okay? So once you understand what you want to get out of it, you understand more, okay, what type of job do I want? What job will give me that fulfillment? And more importantly, is that job something that I can physically or mentally do despite my disability, right? I mean, we have to be real there. You can say, hey, you know, I'm deaf and blind and have no arms and no legs and I want to be an astronaut, right? That's not going to happen. You know, just being real here, yeah? So once you know all this, then you start to look at, okay, so what do you want to do as a 3D artist? What will give you, one, the most fulfillment, and two, fits best in your possibilities, okay? So let's say you say, okay, I want to be an animator, or I want to be a lighting artist, or I want to be a rigger, or whatever. The reason why I'm saying this is, for example, somebody who's blind, you'd say, well, they can't work in the 3D in the industry. Well, says who, right? I mean, keep in mind that when you lose one of your senses, you heighten the others. And one thing that a blind person can do perfectly is visualize things in a creative way, right? So we're looking at, for example, a coaching role, that kind of thing. So keep in mind that you shouldn't immediately, exclude something from the list. Put some thought into it and think about it. Yeah. All right. So you understand what you want to do. You understand what knowledge you need to have to do this job. And I'm not even talking about whether they're going to hire you or not, just the skills. What software do we need to learn? What things do I need to know? What skills do I need to develop, right? Okay, so next question is this. Is it okay for you to have this be just a hobby? So you don't need to be hired by anyone. You just want to tell your story, okay? Now, if that's fine by you, as long as you can do this, you get 3D software, you learn the 3D software, and then your own time and in your own pace, you make whatever you want, right? And hey, you're happy about it. You show your friends, you show your family, and it's all said and done, yeah? Great. If that is the case, then there's really not a lot of limitations. You just get started, right? The thing is, though, maybe you're going to say, well, it has to be a job, right? I want to be part of that team. I want to be hired by a company. I want to be, and so forth, yeah? If that's the case, it makes it a lot more difficult because suddenly you are involving external parties to the whole thing, yeah? Let's see. Charlie is saying, will I speak to what it means to have a mental disability and the possible implications of that? I will, okay? And if I forget, remind me. I will talk about that, yeah? Okay, so let's say a hobby is not good enough, right? You want it to be a job, fine. So suddenly you now are dealing with people that will have to give you that job, right? So you're now dealing with their perception and their value set and why they should hire you and not somebody else, and so forth. And then the final thing here is, and does it have to be a paid job? The reason why I'm saying that is you have a certain value set, why you want things. I want to be a 3D artist because I want to work for a 3D studio because, and so forth. A potential employer like a 3D studio, right, will have a value set as well. I want to hire this person because I don't want to hire that person because. So dealing with that value set makes it much more difficult. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but it makes it more difficult, okay? So looking at the last question here about what it means to have a mental disability. If you're working in 3D, then typically, especially if you're working for a studio, you are part of a team. You're part of a pipeline. Something happens before you do something, something happens after you're done, and that whole process together is one product, right? Now, depending on the type of mental disability you have, you need to have the ability to communicate. You need to understand what they're saying, what needs to be done next, and so forth and so on. This can be a cognitive mental disability in the sense that you don't have the ability to understand, right? But it can also be another type of mental disability, like, I don't know, you have I don't know if that's a mental disability or not, but, you know, ADHD or ADD or PTSD or anything that will impair your skills to deal with social environments, right? Now, if that's the case, you can consider, hey, what if I work remote? And what if all my instructions are delivered to me per email, right? That's a possibility. What if I work as a freelance artist? What if I strictly make 3D assets and sell them online? That way I don't have to communicate with anyone, right? I make my model, I upload it to a website, I add all the details, I sit back and see what happens, right? All of these are possible. So don't immediately, exclude things. There are a lot of possibilities here, yeah? Okay, so you determined, okay, I don't want it to be just a hobby. It has to be a job, and it has to be a paid job as well, right? So that's kind of the highest achievable level, and therefore probably also the most difficult, okay? So let's go to the next hurdle that needs to be jumped, okay? There's this saying, I don't know how it goes exactly, but something like, if a door closes, a window opens, something like that. What I find with the people that I deal with that have disabilities is every disability heightens something else. People that can't see typically hear better, right? Because they need to. They need to heighten their senses to be functional. When I deal with veterans, especially those that have mobility problems, right? They lost a limb, an arm, a leg, or multiple, right? They have this thing where they are fierce about, staying functional and staying prepared and staying, upholding their strength and whatever. So their work ethic and their dedication is huge. Now, you could see that as an advantage over other people. I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm limited in mobility. I can't do a lot of things. I can't go and swim. I can't ride a horse. I can't do anything like that. Yeah. But what I can do is sit at a desk and work behind my PC. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to spend a lot more time focusing on my 3D skills and knowledge than most other people because they're doing a whole bunch of other things, right? So you could say, hey, that's an advantage because somebody else spent 10,000 hours honing their skills. I spent 50,000, right? But it's key that you explain that value, right, to whoever is the external party that has to hire you. So that's kind of what I'm talking about here, yeah? So what other things could it be? Maybe you have a lot more patience, yeah? Maybe you are much more precise because you trained that skill. Maybe you spend a lot more time learning the software. Okay. Now, like I said before, you need to focus on what is possible. There's no point in going after something that is clearly not possible. There is a lot possible, but there are things that are not possible, right? Let's say I want to be a Formula One driver and I'm blind. Well, that's kind of a problem, wouldn't you think? Yeah. So don't set yourself up for failure. If there are things that you know to be impossible, I wouldn't put all my energy in that basket, right? But like I said, there are a lot more things than you think that are possible. Okay. So, so whatever you seek to become, right, depending on what I said before, right? So is it a hobby, or do you want to have a job, or do you want to be paid, and so forth? It has to be remotely achievable. Okay, cool. Now, next thing I'm going to talk about is 2 approaches and 3 ingredients. Now, this might sound a bit complicated, but let me explain. Yeah. So approach number 1 is this: you acquire the knowledge and skill within your abilities, and then you see if the industry sees any value in it, right? So what you say is, listen, I'm going to, I don't know, I want to be an animator. So I'm going to learn Maya, and I'm going to learn how to animate, and I'm going to learn all that stuff. And once I have all this skill, and once I have all this knowledge, I'm going to go out and see if I can find a job. That's one approach. Okay. Now, the second approach is this: look at where there is a value in the industry, right? Okay. Hey, it seems that they're specifically looking for this type of animator. So I'm going to spend my time gaining that knowledge and skill specifically to increase my chances in the industry. Now, the thing between these two is this: what is more important to you? To do what you want to do and may or may not find a paid job, right? Or is it more important for you to work in the industry with a paid job, regardless of what that role may be? So you need to choose these things, right? Now, and I said 2 approaches and 3 ingredients. So the first ingredient is, what is valuable to you? Yeah, we talked about this. What do you want? Why do you want this? Why do you want to be a 3D artist? Why do you want to be in the 3D industry? And so forth and so on. The second important thing is, what is the value to them? And by them, I mean the studios, the employers, the clients. Yeah, because these 2 have to meet. And then the third ingredient is, what are you capable of? Wanting something that you can't obtain is frustrating. Wanting something that you have to work extremely hard for is different, because that is achievable. Now, keep in mind, to begin with, that working in the 3D industry is already tough. Yeah. Now that we talked about all this, I'm going to talk about how the value proposition works for a business. Before I do that, I'm quickly going to read what you guys typed here, and I'm going to see if you got any questions before we move forward. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so I see a question about repetitive stress injury. I wouldn't necessarily call that a disability. I mean, it is a disability in the sense that it hinders you from doing something. Disability is usually in a different realm, but yeah, you could include that. Okay, let's see. Can you speak about procedural modeling? Okay, that's completely off topic. Any reservations for disability in the industry? Tushar, what do you mean by any reservations for disability? Do you mean that they put funds aside? Let me know. Yeah. Tammy's saying, well, I'm glad this is a topic. Some studios don't have step-free access until they need to. And Tammy, I'll actually talk about this. And it's interesting that you call yourself jerk chicken. That's kind of funny. I'll talk about this in a minute, right? When we talk about this value proposition. Charlie saying, can you speak to what it means to have a mental disability and the possible implications of that, social or otherwise? Okay, there's more there. High functioning autism, for instance. I noticed that in what the Australian version of college is, there were a lot of young, talented would-be artists with some questionable social skills. Well, okay, interesting. Questionable social skills. Wow. When it comes to 3D artists in general, and I'm going to be very careful here because I don't want to generalize a complete group of people, right? People that are 3D artists usually tend to be very introvert, right? They're not super outgoing people. They're not super social people. Sometimes they're a little bit nerdy, right? They kind of want to hang out behind their PC and do their thing, which is fine. I don't necessarily call that a disability. I would say maybe social awkwardness, right? But that's fine. I mean, the whole 3D industry is filled with people like that. So that's not a big deal, right? Even people that have autism, especially people that are high functioning, the people with high functioning autism, it shouldn't necessarily be a problem. Because like I said, people in the industry are kind of used to that. A lot of work is done kind of by yourself anyway, but you need to be approachable. You need to be able to have a conversation, right? So it kind of depends on the level of autism you have. It's different when you, for example, and this is what I hear a lot with, veterans, if people have PTSD or even worse, CPTSD, right? They can really get into a panic state when they are in a crowd of people. It's kind of hard to work in a team if you have that problem, right? So there you go. Now, like I said, any questions before I move forward into what the business, how the business sees disability and how you can increase your chances in that industry and so forth and so on. Yeah. So I'll take a quick sip here. Please let me know if you've got any questions and then we'll move forward. Yeah. And let me know if this is kind of an interesting topic for you guys. So Ahmed is saying job is job. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think you can have a job for various reasons. You can have a job because you need to pay the bills. You can have a job because you're really passionate about what you're doing, regardless of whether you're getting paid or not. So I think it's depends very much on the individual. Okay. Let's see. Any questions, guys? Okay, so that's interesting. And I'll talk about this, yeah? Let's see, thanks for addressing that. I did notice that this industry does tend to attract a certain kind of person, so it's comforting to know that it isn't a deal breaker. I would say in every studio I ever visited, there were at least one or two people with autism, at least. And it's kind of, like I said before, it's, you develop your strengths in other areas, and that can be a plus, right? If people with autism, oddly enough, on certain topics can be super focused. Now, if you're doing a very complicated procedural thing in a system, okay, maybe you're not the most chatty guy in the room, and maybe, people have to put in some extra effort to have a conversation with you. But at the same time, you're hitting it out of the park every time because you don't get distracted that much when you're working on that specific thing. Yeah. So it can be a plus. Now, apparently, there are not that many questions. There's one more here. So hiring people with disability compared to, let's say, male-female ratio and so forth. Now, the thing is this. When you talk about companies hiring people with a disability, it can have a couple of reasons: because they want to, because they have to, or because they see value in it, right? If you're in a situation where a company by law has to have a certain percentage of people with a disability, that can be a law thing, right? I personally don't know whether I would want to be that guy, right? Like, hey, if they got 10 employees, so number 11 has to be somebody with a disability, so I'm going to go out and hire you, right? You might say, hey, I don't care, job's a job, right? But that's a thing. It can be a situation where the company owner has a personal reason why they want to help somebody with a disability to get through that prejudice, right? A lot of people have a prejudice. Okay, person has a disability, won't be able to do the job, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, one of the reasons why I'm doing this video is because I myself have people in my immediate surroundings with a disability, and I have a disability myself, right? So maybe if that weren't the case, I wouldn't even think about doing this video. So that's kind of how that works. So that can be a reason, but the best achievable situation, I would say, is that they hire you because they want you to work there. And that's what I'm going to be talking about, okay? Let's see. Let me just see if there's anything else here. Okay, Fernand, thanks for addressing that. I did notice the industry does tend to, yeah, that's true. Going to be more. I think about these things. If I lose my right hand, how long it will take you take left-handed and do the artwork for with one hand? Okay, I'll give you an example. I heard of a guy who was was and still is a soldier. Yeah. So the soldier gets struck by an IED, and I'm not going to say what country and where this happened because it doesn't matter, right? Soldier walks on an IED, gets injured, and loses his leg, right? Now, this is a hardcore military guy, and this is his whole life and his whole passion, right? So he loses a leg, has to rehabilitate, has to get a prosthetic leg, has to do all of that stuff. Within 2 years, he was back in the combat zone doing his job as a soldier. That's amazing, right? So how quick you will be able to do that, it all depends on your willpower. How much time do you want to spend on it? If you're going to spend a year feeling sorry for yourself, which is fair, right? That year is not going to get you any closer to your goal. So yeah, you just deal with it and you move forward. That's basically it. And once in a while, you can be really pissed about the situation, which is fine. And I always say, when that is the case in my own life, I'll say, okay, at 10 o'clock, I'll give myself 15 minutes to be super pissed. And then after 15 minutes, I just get over it and move forward. Yeah. Let's see. How often studios have facilities designed to accommodate people on a wheelchair, for example? Okay. So let me talk about value for companies. First, I have to give you a little business drill, if you will. Yeah. If you look at somebody that starts a company, whatever company that may be, a game studio, a movie studio, it doesn't matter, a bakery, a bike shop, okay? Any company whatsoever. So the business owner has this idea, I want to start a company. Fine. Now, you don't start a company to shut it down a week from now, right? So when you start a company, there's one thing that is always your first priority, number one, always, ever, 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 and that is continuity. If you start your company, it has to be there a week from now, a month from now, and a year from now. So anything that adds to the continuity of that business is key. Anything that takes away from that continuity is something you need to avoid, right? So the company owner is always looking at value. How can I make more value for my company so I will be able to stay in business? That's just simple business math, yeah? Okay. Now, how do you achieve continuity? You achieve continuity by making money. That's just the world we live in, right? So you need to have sales. You sell your movies, you sell your games, you get revenue. And out of that revenue, you have profit. And with that profit, you pay your bills. And that's how things keep on running. That's just basic business, yeah? So if you extend that line in the 3D industry towards resources, right? A studio owner has resources. That he has computers, he has software, but he also has employees. And these employees are part of those resources. So the computer has to add value. The software has to add value. And these employees have to add value as well. If the business is paying you $2,000 a month, you should have a value more than $2,000 a month. Otherwise, you don't have any value. That makes sense, right? Okay. So it's key for you to find where is your value to that studio owner, right? And there are ways of doing that. Now, the specific question that I get here is, how often do studios have facilities designed to accommodate people in a wheelchair? Well, if they never consider hiring anybody in a wheelchair, they wouldn't do that unless the law says you have to, right? What if the owner of the studio is in a wheelchair himself? Then you'll have ramps everywhere. Makes sense, right? So how do you find out what's valuable to the studio owner? How do you find out whether you can add that value? And how can you bring these things together, right? Okay. Let's say there's a job opening on LinkedIn or ArtStation or whatever, yeah? And the question is, okay, we're looking for a 3D animator. Now, you send in your resume and 30 other people send in their resume, right? And they're going through the resumes and they say, hey, okay, this is a resume by Bob, and Bob's in a wheelchair. And the immediate thought is, that's too much of a hassle because I don't have ramps. What if that person needs to go to the hospital all the time and, blah, 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 blah. So they move you over to the side and they continue with other people. That's just a reality of life, right? Now, of course, I'm going to get comments in the video saying, oh, we would never do that and blah, 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 right? It's just a reality of life. Now, what's important for you if you have a disability is how do you get past that, right? How do you show your value without that prejudice of, hey, you're in a wheelchair, worth it? Basically, that means you need to insert yourself into their world before you start creating value, and not before you start creating value, before you start asking something from that party. How does that work? Yeah. I have a guy in my MH Tutorials Hangout group, right, on Facebook. Now, we've got 4,000 something artists in there. And this guy is in a wheelchair, and if I am informed correctly, he has what's it called? Cerebral palsy. I think that's the correct term. Yeah. So he has mobility issues. He's in a wheelchair, and But this guy is working in Maya. He's working in ZBrush. He controls everything with his feet. I mean, the 3D artists out there sometimes complain about, oh, it's so tough. This guy is modeling with his feet. Right? What he did is he inserted himself into that Facebook group and he made himself known, right? He posts things. I mean, he will take longer to do things, but he does post on what he did, right? He posts his work. He shares his work. He talks about his work. So more and more people start to learn about him, who he is, what he does. He recently even started a YouTube channel. Awesome, right? That's not awesome because he's disabled. That's not the reason. The reason why it's awesome is because he overcame his problems and started to create whatever he wanted to create, right? So he's a fighter. That's awesome. I'm never going to call somebody awesome because they're disabled. I think that's just bullshit, yeah? So you can insert yourself in a community. You can start to share your work. You can start to talk about your work. And at some point, people will know you for your work, for your comments, for your professionalism, for everything you add to the 3D community, and they probably don't even know you have a disability, right? If at that point you have an interview with a studio and you show up in a wheelchair, that's not the first thing on their mind, right? And if it is a situation where they have any people in their environment that also has a disability, it's a non-issue, okay? Okay, guys, that is basically the approach. Now, what I would like to do, though, is deal with individual specific questions so I can be more specific, okay? Let me know first whether any of this makes sense to you, right? And whether you have any questions, okay? Let me know. I see we got 20 people on the 21 people on the live stream here. I didn't expect to have 100. I mean, I know from experience when I talk about the quote unquote cool stuff, right? We're going to have 80 to 100 people on the live stream. Like I said in the beginning, my videos are not monetized. This is not a popularity contest. I'm not doing these videos to get a whole bunch of views and likes, for the simple reason, like I said, my channel isn't monetized. All right. I'm doing this video because I think it's important. So let me know if you feel it's important as well. Do you have any questions? Is there anything you want to know? Is there a situation that you are in that you're struggling with? Please let me know, and let's get some interaction going here. Yeah. And while you're thinking about that, to go into that last question there, how often do studios have those facilities? It very much depends on where you're located in the world. If you're in the US, for example, the chances are very high that there are. If you're in Western Europe, same deal. If you go towards Asia or you go towards Africa, then the chances will drop fast, right? Maybe it's partly awareness, maybe it's partly because the ability to afford it, and so forth and so on. I don't know what the exact reasons are, but that's what it is. Yeah. Okay, guys, any questions at all? What do you think about the video? What do you think about the content? I mean, if there are no questions, then hey, you know. Okay, guys, well, I'll give it a few more minutes. And if there are no questions, then we'll call it a day. Just curious, by the way, you don't have to let me know, but if you like, right? I'm kind of curious whether we have people in the live stream right now that actually do have a disability, right? Any tools that help? Oh, there are tons and tons and tons of tools. Depending on the type of disability you have. I mean, hey, Ian, how are you? There are, for example, people that have a visual impairment, right? Not people that are completely blind, but people that have bad eyesight, right? They got these apps that will enhance your screen in the area where your mouse is, that kind of thing. They got special keyboards for people that have issues with their hands. You have controls to control your mouse with your feet. I even know of people that control their mouse or their pen display pen with their mouth, right? The big issue is always, all right, who's going to pay for it, right? And what I feel, if I had to make that choice personally, what I feel would be a good option is to look into working more freelance for a couple of reasons. As a freelance artist, you can work from home, right? Which is in your own environment, which makes mobility a bit easier, right? You can work from home. You can use any tools that you have access to without having to rely on other artists, that don't use those tools and so forth. If you have a mental disability and you don't want to have a lot of interaction with people, you can, for example, say, hey, I'm going to create 3D assets. I'm going to upload them online. I'm going to sell them and make my money that way, right? So all of these are options. Other than that, practical tools like ramps and railings and all that, I mean, sure. But it's all a matter of, unfortunately, business economics. When you're applying for a job at a studio and you have special needs, and again, that's a term that I think kind of sounds horrible, but there's certain things you need, right? If they're going to have to pay for that money, where's the value for them? And you can say, well, be a decent human being, right? Fair enough. But you know how the world's like, yeah? Let's see. Tammy is saying, well, I hope that we can get that you put this together. I hope that this can be seen by someone who needs that reminder that they can do it no matter what. Well, I appreciate it, Tammy, and keep in mind that um, there's a big change going on in the world, and it has been going on for, I would say, at least, I don't know, 10, 15 years. When I grew up, if somebody had, let's say, a prosthetic arm, right, they would hide it. Now you see people walking around in a t-shirt, right? And I wouldn't say they're showing it off, but they're not ashamed of it at all, and they shouldn't be, right? The technology has evolved, and they're even at a point where I saw a video on YouTube recently about a bionic arm, and somebody made a comment, I wish I missed an arm. I'm like, that's stupid, right? But anyway, you get the sentiment that I'm talking about. Yeah. Um, so that's a development that's going on. And if there's anyone out there that thinks, hey, I have a disability, so I'm never going to make it, I hope this video will make a slight change. You need to find value in yourself before you can be valuable to anyone else. Yeah. Let's see. Charlie's saying, thanks for your time, Mike. I believe I'm on the lower end of the spectrum myself, but I've never bothered to get myself diagnosed. Your insight kind of put my mind at ease. Well, I'm really happy that it helped somewhat. Like I said, don't have the world define who you are, right? I mean, we're living in a world right now where you have a lot more freedom to define who you are, and the sky's the limit. If you can do it, do it. I mean, you got people skiing with one leg, right? You got people doing bicycle races that are completely blind. You have so much opportunities right now, and I don't see any reason for you to not be able to become a 3D artist if that is absolutely your passion, one way or the other, right? Okay, so here's a comment that I can't read. Okay, so what I'll do, guys, is I typically kind of quit on the full hour. We got about, I would say, a small 10 minutes left. So let's open up the topic, and the last 10 minutes, I'll ask or answer any questions about any 3D topic, okay? So we'll let go of the topic of the live stream. We'll talk about any 3D stuff at all, and we'll do that for another 10 minutes or so. Is that okay? So let me know if you got any questions. Unless, of course, you have any questions about the topic of today. It's interesting that when I do a topic on how to make money in the 3D industry, you got 100 people on, and when you talk about a disability, you have 17. Interesting. But like I said, I don't care about that. I would rather talk to 5 people that have an interest and that this video would help than talk to 500 people just because they want an entertaining video. Okay. Okay, the sentiment is admirable, but ultimately unrealistic. Industry, okay. So, well, first of all, I don't think this is a sentiment. I mean, and I'm just being honest here. I mean, I have a disability myself, and I've been completely functioning in the industry for 30 years. And I knew a lot of people that are, right? The sentiment is this: if you think, hey, I have a disability and I feel sorry for myself, and if I call a studio, they'll come on running and hire me and give me loads of money, that's not going to happen, right? What I'm saying is, don't let the world and the industry define you. If you have the energy and the strength and the stamina and all that stuff to go for your goal, try to find an opening and fight for it. That's what I'm saying here. But I am curious, I776, to understand what you mean by that comment. Yeah. Industry has more work or less these times. It's kind of shifting. in the movie and game industry, I mean, especially in the game industry, there's a lot more work right now because a lot of people are forced to stay home and they're playing much more games and all that. Movie industry, because they have to abide by proximity rules and whatever, that's a bit less. If you look at the industry in general, that's a bit more. So it's kind of shifting, yeah? Let's see. Can you become a 3D artist with a disability? Yes. Will anyone hire you? Depends on the disability. Of course, I totally agree. But like I said, it's not a sentiment. What I'm saying is don't exclude yourself from the get-go because you have a disability. If this is your dream, look into it. And like I said, if you're deaf and blind and don't have any arms and legs, you're not going to be an astronaut. Simple as that, right? Don't even try. But if you have autism and you think I can't work in a studio because I got autism, yes, you can, right? Is it going to be easy? No. But can you do it? Yes. If you have PTSD, you can do it. If you don't have any legs, you can do it. If you're missing an arm, you can do it. A lot of things out there, right? But you have to look into it and you have to investigate what is possible and isn't possible. And what the world is telling you, if you have disability, don't even try. And that's what this video is about, yeah? Let's see, many companies use different software. That's my problem, the expertise and all of that. Any suggestions? Okay. So from a software point of view, a lot of people tend to use the same software. You got Maya people, 3ds Max people, Blender people. That's kind of for the modeling part. For the sculpting, it's typically something like 3D Coat or ZBrush or even Mudbox. For texturing, it's something like Megascans or Substance Painter. But the reality is this: if you have a skill in one package, it's not that difficult to get a skill in the other, right? If you know how to work in Maya, you will be up and running in 3ds Max in 2 days, right? If you know how to work in Maya, you will be able to be up and running in Blender in 2-3 days. That happens all the time. You get hired by a studio to work on a project and they'll say, oh, by the way, we don't use Maya here, we use something else. They will give you a day or two to get up and running. So it's not a big of a deal, yeah? Let's see, that the Indian gaming console, I can't read that, so sorry about that. With 3D scanning becoming more affordable, rules are definitely changing. That's true, they're changing, but the question that I get all the time is, will that be the end of the job of a 3D artist? And I get this question all the time, and I believe it will not. Because the job of a 3D artist is to tell a story or to help tell a story, right? And you will see a shift in things, but for example, animating a character to tell a story is a human thing, yeah? I don't see that changing. Personally, want to start off in the office, not working from home, because I believe having Asperger's myself, I would be able to build a relationship easier. What do you think? Yeah, with Asperger's, I mean, I've seen that before. I don't think that is a big deal, especially if you are working in a somewhat larger studio. I mean, if you have a studio with, let's say, 3 people, then there's a lot of pressure on these 3 people because they all have to wear multiple hats and they have to do multiple things. Slightly larger studio, you will have a little bit more focus on specific tasks, and that might be something that would suit you better, I would think. So yeah, I would definitely go for that. And yeah, go for it. Let's see, what happens if you have disagreement or fight with any company or client? How badly will it affect contacts of new clients? Well, first of all, I wouldn't want to call it a fight. I would call it a business disagreement. And yeah, I don't know the details of the disagreement, whether it's payment or quality or anything like that. But I would try to stay professional, right? Never make it personal. Yeah. Let's see, as a recent graduate in Australia, I find myself struggling to find a relevant job. How long do you think it practically takes for a graduate? I mean, that's such a hard question to answer. I know that people from Australia typically have a very hard time finding a job, because I hear it all the time. Two ways going about it. One is to find a spot in the industry. Two is to create a spot for yourself. Two different approaches. One would be get hired by a studio approach. Two would be become a freelance artist approach. Yeah. If you're in an area where there are very limited, options, the best option probably would be to try and become freelance. You can then work globally. You can, I mean, if you're selling assets online, even from Australia, you can sell it anywhere, right? Let's see. Okay. Right. What's your suggestion for a person who's doing everything? Example, modeling, sculpting, texturing, animation, and he's happy with the work, but super tired. Okay, so that depends. Are you studying to become a 3D artist, or is this your workload while working as a 3D artist? I mean, doing everything is a bit much. And if you want to become a generalist, then you should know a little bit about everything, but it's all about time management, right? Yeah, slow down. I mean, you don't want to burn out yourself, yeah? Let's see, should practically take, yeah. Let's see, here's that comment again that I can't read. I'm not sure what the deal is there. All right. So, yeah, guys, before I leave, please do me a favor. Let me know in the comments right here what you thought about this video. Is it something that is helpful, relevant, unnecessary? What? Let me know. Yeah, I mean, 3D artists and the 3D industry in general is very competitive to begin with, right? It's not an easy world to make a living, and like I said, especially not if you have disability. But what I'm saying here is not impossible, and yeah, that's very true. I mean, like I said before, if you're in the US or in Western Europe, chances are there's a lot more quote unquote political pressure, right? Or even legal pressure to have facilities for those with the disability. But I've traveled the world many, many times over, and I know that there are areas in the world where if you have disability, you have a super, super hard time, right? And that's unfortunately the case, but I know that that is true. So hopefully that will change one day. Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, that's it for me today. 1 hour full in. I really, really hope it was helpful for you guys. Please let me know in the comments if it was, or if I should, just not do videos like that, right? Okay, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said, the video will stay up online, so no worries about that. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye, guys.